Hey watercolor wizards, Hajra here. Today we'll be further working on a William Heath Robinson Ink Master study for Inktober. In a previous video I inked this study, and in this one I'll be adding some ink colors. Free Skillshare video links, art blogs, Q&As, sketches, deconstructed paintings, video notes, and art gifts are all at a single convenient tier for patrons on Patreon. Thanks for parking your brushes here and let the epic art adventures begin. So I'll be using Viviva color sheet ink colors for this, and I have a wheel that I swatched and posted to Instagram sometime back with all the Viviva colors on it. And so we can look at it and you'll see that I'll be using the warmer autumn colors for this piece, which is the red, orange, yellow, brown, and green. I also did several other swatches for different color schemes on little wheels for the Viviva ink color sheets while I was traveling. And if you want some more information on color schemes and color palettes and how to choose them, then I've got a few great videos on that, along with many Patreon posts if you want to check that out. And I've also posted past videos and also posted to Patreon showing and explaining examples using Viviva color sheets. So there's a lot of fun stuff to check out if you're interested in learning more about these color sheets. But in a nutshell, they are dye-based inks. They're not light fast or waterproof, but they are fun and fast and super compact and affordable. So they're really nifty for travel journaling and casual art pieces. I'm starting with Wet and Wet of some of the yellow into the background. And I put some clear water down on the paper first and then add the color into it to get those lovely soft bleeds. Because this is dye-based ink, it's really super bright and bleedy, and it loves to spread on wet paper. See how magical that color looks as it spreads into that bloomy, bleedy, abstract background. Really fast and fun, but so satisfying and artsy. I'm using Strathmore mixed media paper, which isn't ideal for layered watercolor pieces, but really nice for ink and wash pieces. And this has come out of a journal I dismantled, as I've explained in my past videos. For the shrubs in the background, I used some of the sap green color, and it has a bit of a neon lean to it, as all of these dye-based inks and these color sheets do, so it's more like a radioactive sap green. And that's a good way to think of any of these colors, is they're sort of the radioactive version of whatever they're claiming to be. Not great for an elegant painting, but very fun for an Inktober study. I have some half mittens on to prevent smears and wet ink tracks since I'm too impatient to wait for the background and other areas to fully dry as I continue because I'm filming this. And you can also put a piece of scrap paper under your hand if you don't have half mittens or inking gloves and are also impatient like I am. And it seemed like a good idea to make the bonnet green since it'll bookend the color at the bottom and the shrubs. And I'm going to end up using the green in other places too, but I really did like having it at the top and at the bottom. And I can use whatever colors I decide anywhere for this piece because Robinson's original study was just black and white, no colors at all, so any color scheme we want for this study. For the bonnet and for the bow and ribbon and other areas where I need more control, I'm going to use wet paint on dry paper. And wet and dry is great for areas of more control in general, especially inks that want to bleed even more than watercolor. Edges that I don't want to dry hard, I can soften with a damp brush, so you still get to choose between hard and soft edges, even if you're painting wet on dry. Just make sure the brush you blend with is clean and only slightly damp, otherwise you're going to get mud or back bleeds or both. I chose to use burnt umber for the skin as it's really the best skin tone color in this set that I've found. I'm using more wet and dry for the features, of course, because they're tiny. I just want to put a little bit of value for emphasis around the nose and the eye socket and the chin and a little bit of red for the lips. Because this ink really loves to feather out and spread so much, it does that in a tiny space too. So it can be annoying, but it's a nice effect if you're prepared for it and manage to control it, or you let it completely get out of control and are happy with just random stuff. For the random out of control part, I let that happen in the background. For the bonnet and the face and the hands, I try to exert some amount of control for the bleeds. but you know, it can't always work. And so the bleeds on the red bow did get away from me and bled out into the yellow background. Now, I could have just left this red overflow alone, but I wasn't overly happy with that in this case, so I just colored over it where it came out of the bow into the background with a white gel pen. And I'm going to come back later and recolor over it with more white pen and then add some yellow ink over the top, and that'll help it merge and look more natural eventually. So you can choose to leave accidents the way they are as a random effect or correct something if it's unwanted. It just depends on what feels nicer visually to you. I did the scarf in orange first, and then it seemed too tiger orange, so I'm going to come back later with some burnt umber over the top to mute it down a bit. I was debating if the dress should be red with green designs or vice versa, and I decided I liked a green dress with red designs better, so I went with that. I really like how the green dye sort of separates into cooler green and also warmer yellow color as it's diluted. And it makes it look like 2 or more colors have been applied when this happens, even though it's just the single sap green. You get a similar effect with pens like the Elegant Writer, which I've shown before, which is great because it runs and bleeds when you add water to it. And the Elegant Writer is a black ink, but it also separates into different dye colors, some magenta, some green, as you dilute it with water. So it's a cool effect that can happen with dye inks. And as I mentioned earlier, I did burnt umber as a top color over the scarf to mute it down, and then also decided it was a good color for the curly hair that was peeking through the bonnet. And the ruffles and other fabric bits like the sleeve cuffs I did with yellow shadows to bring in a little yellow somewhere apart from the background. More red for that hanging handkerchief or shorter scarf. And you can see as I do the dress that I focus the darker initial placement of the green color in the folds and shadow areas of the dress. So it bleeds toward the highlight areas in the lighter color, but the darker color is focused in the shadow areas. Because this ink is very staining, it's hard to recapture any highlights from lifting or shifting the color. So be mindful of that when you're applying your color. Then I'm going to finish up with red for the fabric designs, and I went for autumnal colors, but this is also somewhat Christmassy in appearance because of the dominant red and green that happened here. Though it's still a bit too warm in temperature for Christmas, so I think I can still safely say that it falls into autumnal fall colors. This is another A-shape composition, which is seen often for portrait pieces, and it's also interesting that nothing important occurs at any of the 1/3 boundary intersections. So just like I discussed at length regarding John William Waterhouse's Windflowers painting in a deconstructed painting post on Patreon, many successful compositions do not use the golden mean ratio for focal points in a composition. Sometimes, like here, just the face is enough to draw our attention naturally, along with the tapered convergence of the A-shape in a composition to direct the gaze. Well, wizards, hope you enjoyed adding colors to this William Heath Robinson master study with me. I loved painting all the little sections with the colored inks. It was super fun and satisfying. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check out my website link, Skillshare, and Patreon page to support my art and art channel below. Thanks for parking your brushes here, and wishing you all inky art adventures.